Hi folks, I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. I'm Ken Calvert, your humble servant, alongside the great one, Father Joe Grimaldi. As you know, the Father Joe podcast is proudly supported by Hoot McInerney's Star Lincoln 12-mile road and telegraph in Southfield. Father Joe is driving the new 2019 Lincoln MKC, and guess what? So am I. I helped him pick it out. We went to starlincoln.com. You can virtually see what your new Lincoln will look like and calculate your price. That's the great news. Look, with these Michigan winters, it's either freezing, or it's warm, or it's snowing, or it's freezing rain. We never know what we're going to get. It's easy to shop at home at starlincoln.com. Tell them you heard about Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln on the Father Joe podcast, located at 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield, and visit starlincoln.com.
Special.
Okay, I came across something and I want to read it to you. I want to get your thoughts, and apparently you...
Really? What thoughts are you going to give me?
All right, it's simple. It was Dateline, February 12th, 2019.
Ready.
Gallup, New Mexico.
Wow.
Bishop James Wall of Gallup has announced in a pastoral letter the restoration of the order of sacraments of initiation in the Mission Diocese. All right? Once the new policy is implemented, children will receive confirmation and First Holy Communion in the same Mass at around ages 7 or 8. You have been a long-time advocate of that, correct?
Yes.
And I was wondering, does that bishop have to sort of write a letter to the Holy Father saying, "Dear Holy Father, here's what I'm going to do," or does he have to write a letter saying, "Dear Holy Father, here's what I would like to do"?
I don't think he has to do either.
Really?
Well, because once you are a bishop and you are the ordinary, it's called the ordinary of the diocese, that means you are in charge of that diocese. And that means that you call the shots, basically. Obviously, you have different advisors to help you along the way, but by the same token, you are the last word. You are, to that diocese, you would be like the Pope for that diocese. Now, unless you do something horrible or go against moral codes, nobody's going to ever bother you. So you just do what you feel has to be done. When you speak about the sacraments of initiation, there are three. You have baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist. Well, the whole idea behind that, of course, is that baptism is the gateway into all the sacraments. Once you are baptized, then you are eligible for all of the different sacraments. In the early days, right after the 3rd, 4th century, whatever the case might be, the bishop was not so close to everyone in his diocese. They probably didn't even call it that. In any case, so very often confirmation was conferred on the people by the parish priest, okay? Now, on occasion, they would have a visit from the bishop, but since he would have to travel long distances, he certainly couldn't take care of all of the different parishes in a certain area, like we do today. For example, traditionally, April, May, June, those are the days when they have confirmation. That's not always the case, because wherever it's necessary, because of the number of parishes, they even do that in January and February. So it's not, traditionally, it makes a nice picture to have that in May and June. So because the parishes very often also wanted the bishop, they would have to wait. And so that they wouldn't do the confirmation immediately, they would just wait until the bishop could come. And sometimes that took a number of years. So this is the way that has developed. But the three sacraments of initiation, I think, were meant to be together. If you were to look at the Orthodox churches, our brothers and sisters in the Orthodox churches, we've done that.
We've talked about the fact that they do it all at the exact same time, because you had mentioned to me before that basically at baptism, you're baptized, you receive a taste of wine.
Yes.
So you're getting the Eucharist.
Right.
And you're using chrism to anoint the infant. Ergo, therefore, you basically are receiving all three sacraments at that time.
Correct. Yeah.
However, I do think that people enjoy the process or think it's a necessary process for a young child to sort of understand, study, and then receive the Eucharist for the first time and making it a very special event, thus making them sort of develop their roots within the church.
Correct.
They feel more established when they can go up with mom and dad, brothers and sisters, go up the aisle and receive Holy Communion or the Holy Eucharist, right?
Definitely.
My first communion was huge. That was a big, big deal. Confirmation was big. It was a very big deal, and obviously I do not remember my baptism. And if I did, I would be a wonder child. But you see what I'm saying. So you're an advocate for that. We've discussed that. I wanted to talk to you about this bishop, and you were saying that this is now being done in how many different parishes?
Well, I'm guessing at least 40.
And here's the question I was going to ask you about. The bishop has powers to do basically what? And what are some other things that a bishop can do that might be different from one diocese to another?
Well, let me put it this way. Anything that has to do with the church.
Anything.
Well, he can't do something immoral.
He can't all of a sudden make it a Latin Mass again, or could he?
Well, not all of a sudden. I mean, nothing happens all of a sudden in the church. I want to stress that, okay?
Okay, I'll get out of the way now. I'm sorry, I'm talking
There's lots
too much.
of conferences, there's lots of meetings, and then they lead up to this. Even to the administering the sacraments of initiation at once would take a lot of preparation. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. There are a couple of reasons for that. People need time to digest what's going to happen so that they're not shocked by it, this type of thing. But in any case, what's happening in those 30, 40, 50 dioceses in the United States is that they do on confirmation on one day and then First Communion the next day.
Oh.
Now, the Bishop of Gallup, maybe because of convenience and distance and so on, decided to do two on the same day, which is fine.
Yeah.
But the idea is this, that once you have baptism, that leaves the door open for all the other sacraments. So maybe when the child is 7 or 8, that's a very teachable moment, not just for the child, but for the parents.
Yeah.
To all of a sudden get religion, if you want, because they have to attend preparation classes. For example, last night I had to hear confessions of the second graders.
Yeah.
They're getting ready for their first communion.
Oh.
And so there were about 40 little ones that came to confession last night. Even that was a teachable moment because parents very often are not frequent goers to the church, have to be there with their little ones. It's special for them.
Yeah.
And so they have to listen. So it becomes a teachable moment even for the parents. And then First Communion is even more of a teaching moment because it is a festive occasion. Parents are proud. They want to be there to see their little tykes all dressed up in suits and the girls dressed up in their First Communion dresses. And so it's a great time to address the parents and religion at that time. So the idea of getting confirmation before communion is the ideal, if you want, because confirmation makes you very much a part of the church, of the communion. So once you're part of the communion, you can receive communion. And this is why they say that the sequence should be baptism, confirmation, and communion. So very often, even when they have it on the same day for the confirmation and first Eucharist, very often you might have confirmation first and then First Communion after that.
All right, wait, I got to stop you for a second because
Sure.
this goes back to the bishop portion of the program here. Does a bishop have to attend confirmation?
No.
Usually does.
Well, because you're in a major diocese.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right, let's take our diocese. Would it be Archbishop Vigneron, or could it be other bishops?
Oh, it could certainly be other bishops. So
All
what
right.
happens, because there are so many parishes in a diocese like ours,
Yeah.
Archbishop Vigneron certainly would try to do the confirmations in a number of parishes every year. But he certainly can't spread himself so thin, so he'll get Bishop Hurley, he might get Bishop Byrne, whoever else is
Yeah.
there to do different churches. So usually, traditionally, it's great to have the bishop administer the sacrament of confirmation. And this is why, as far as you remember, as far as I remember, we always had a bishop.
Yes.
But don't forget, we've been living in major parishes and dioceses. In other parts of the country, the priest, the parish priest, can easily be delegated to do that. I'll give you another example. On the eve of Easter, that's when you have the RCIA, which is the same thing, but for adults. The Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults, RCIA. They receive those who have never been baptized, because there are two groups. You have those who have never been baptized. They receive all three sacraments that night on the eve of Easter. They get baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist. And then you have the same night, very often, you have the candidates. Those people who have been baptized in a different church but want to become Catholic, they are received into the Catholic Church because baptism is not to be duplicated. If it's a legitimate baptism, it's recognized by all of the different mainstream churches. So to answer the original question, let's deal with the children. It seems to be a custom that's catching on now to have confirmation and First Communion either on the same day or one day apart. So maybe Saturday for confirmation, Sunday for... But as I said, it also is a time when the priest can take advantage of saying something meaningful to the parents as well. He may not say it directly, but what he says
to the
parents
children
can learn. Yes.
Well, I would think what he says to the children, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You listening, Mom? You listening, Dad?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I think that's it's a teachable moment. That's what I call it, a teachable moment.
I'm trying to combine this with the various responsibilities and duties of bishops at the same time. Fascinated by bishops. A bishop cannot be the pastor of a church. Okay, aside from the Blessed Sacrament, okay?
No,
all right.
He's not pastorally. Well, he is the pastor, but there's a rector for for the cathedral.
All right.
But no, there are places where the bishop is also, he's the pastor of a particular church, particularly if it's a little church. They don't have a lot of fanfare. It's not a big diocese. Well,
I would think just the opposite.
Well,
see, this is just me. I'm asking questions. So
yeah, but I think you're thinking of the front part of it. I think the idea, of course, is the bishop has a diocese to administer. He's in charge of the diocese. He's the father of that diocese.
Archbishop Vigneron is, but he has
auxiliary
bishops.
Right.
And they could be pastors of churches.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to go priest, Monsignor, then bishop, correct?
Monsignor has nothing to do with it.
Okay. All right. So,
no, it's priest, bishop, and pope.
You're going to tell me your timeline in terms of being a bishop. But were you ever approached to be a bishop?
No.
Never. Were you offended by that?
No.
Okay. Were you happy to not be approached?
Well, let me put it this way. Being a bishop requires a lot of responsibility. You're under the gun from the moment you get up to the moment you go to bed. I mean, lay people know more about Bishop Vigneron than I'm sure he wants people to know, because he's always watched. What does he do at 10 o'clock? What does he do? Does he have a snack at 12:30? Does he? All of this stuff, which I think is a hard way to live. And also today, you're under the gun for a lot of things, and so that it becomes even more difficult today. There used to be a time when you could look at the perks. You had chauffeurs. You had people waiting on you. Mm-hmm. You had special places to live.
Right.
You drove limousines. You didn't drive because you had a chauffeur.
You had to drive,
and
yeah.
so all of these things, those were the perks. Today, those perks are gone for the most part because of the idea that maybe people think that there's a lot of clericalism going on, and I don't use that word in a nice way. Clericalism is kind of when there's more concentration on the paraphernalia of being a bishop than there is on the real meaning of being a bishop.
I see what you're saying.
So it's important that clericalism hopefully diminishes in the church.
If I remember correctly, the archbishop, the bishop, every bishop or archbishop of every diocese has his own cathedra, his
Correct.
own chair.
Which means that nobody sits in there except him.
Okay.
Because he's not always there. Obviously, he travels a lot. He has to go to different parishes and so on. So he's probably at Blessed Sacrament, not every day, not every week, okay? So, but the cathedra, the bishop's chair, is there.
Uh-huh.
It's not in other churches. It's just there. So it can be that there is a co-cathedral in some dioceses, and they may have a minor cathedra there just to remind people that the bishop is in charge. But I do want to get back a moment to...
Please, go ahead. Go.
Well, here's the thing. Confirmation very often was looked upon as a carrot. So if you continue after grade school, if you continue going to classes, and if you do this on a regular basis, then you will be a full member of the church and you'll receive confirmation. So it's the carrot that you hold over the children. So there are a lot of theologians that feel that maybe that shouldn't be. If it's part of your initiation as receiving communion after you get confirmation, well, then you grow up knowing what that means, rather than having to wait until I'm a sophomore in high school before I receive confirmation. So there are religious ed teachers who are not too happy with these dioceses that are using the sacraments of initiation at an early age.
Oh.
Because, well, they're losing their jobs. And
Oh.
they don't have to do that anymore. Well, I think it's important that we have good religious training for people that really want to go. As a matter of fact, I think maybe with a little urging on the part of the parents, they would continue to go to the religious ed classes. They shouldn't give it up. Unfortunately, nowadays, when you are preaching in a church, it's recommended that you don't preach beyond a certain level, because people have stopped doing religion at the 8th grade level. They don't do anything more. And so that they wouldn't understand the terminology and so on and so forth. So what happens is that when you preach, you're preaching to just the 8th grade level, because they have stopped doing their religion by the 8th grade. They shouldn't.
Are you talking about adults as well in the room? Are you suggesting?
Oh, yes, definitely.
In other words, you're saying that basically the heavy imprint that my Catholic education and background, my catechism, has left on me, the largest part of it's going to be basically there by the 8th grade.
Right.
Beyond that, I'm done really learning much more about the Catholic Church.
Yeah, because some people say once I receive communion, once I receive confirmation, I don't have to do anything further.
Oh.
So goodbye, church. This happens to kids. This is why if you receive the sacrament in the 7th or 8th year of age, well, then you should keep up with it because it's important. But if you have to wait for that carrot when you're a sophomore,
I see.
You start losing interest. And matter of fact, you start making excuses. I don't want to go there. I don't want to do. And so you have a lot of people never receive confirmation.
Well, wait a minute. My timeline was I was 7 when I had my first communion, and I want to say I was 10 when I was confirmed, all in grade school. I had it all done in grade school. I remember studying with my parents for my confirmation, and I believe it was Cardinal Dearden.
Cardinal Dearden.
Yes, it was Cardinal Dearden. That actually we were very excited because Cardinal Dearden did our confirmation. And I remember kind of worrying about that slight little tap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a soldier for the church.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
But you see, I think there's been a lot of experimentation time-wise as to when is the ideal time for confirmation. So in the past, people would still do it in grade school, But now it's generally accepted that you do confirmation after you're a sophomore, because then it makes you commit yourself in a real way. Oh yeah, I really want this, so I'm gonna do my confirmation.
Confirmation now is age 14, 15?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So then you have a number of bishops in the United States that say, forget that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to restore the order of the sacraments of initiation.
Okay, then as we wrap this up, let me ask you this. You are in favor of which particular? We've got 3 out there.
Ideally, to do it right after birth is nice, but practically speaking, when you're 7 or 8 years of age, it seems to me anyway, because I think it's personal preference, to receive, let's say, confirmation on Saturday, First Communion on Sunday.
Oh.
So this way, confirmation completes you as a Catholic because you're part of the communion now, and then the next day you receive communion because you can. You know, it's kind of interesting because now whenever there are big ceremonies in the churches, the pastors like to tell the people, if you're going to receive communion, you just form these 2 lines. Otherwise, cross your hands, your arms across the chest.
For the blessing.
And for a blessing, okay? Because technically what they're saying, if you're not part of the communion, you shouldn't be receiving communion. So it's not that we don't like you, but you don't belong to this communion. You belong to another communion.
Right.
So using the word communion in different ways, I think that's what that is.
You see that a lot at funerals, by the way,
Yeah.
when you can tell right away by sit, stand, kneel.
Well, I think you also have a lot of First Communions there, too.
Yeah,
So.
right. Yeah. But so you're for making it an entire weekend. You like it when you make yourself laugh, don't you? Yes, you do. I like to end on an up note. So, Bishop Grimaldi, thank you for joining
Bishop.
me.
My God, I didn't realize this happened during this program.
Well, when you get to the number of podcasts we've done, let me tell you.
Then it should come, right?
We're either going to get a Grammy.
Get the purple hat.
We're going to get a Grammy, or we're going to make you a bishop.
Either way.
We got too much time left in that tank, pal.
Okay.
I'm your agent. Don't forget that, all right? Sign
You're also my boss.
Yeah,
come on.
and I want you to just sign this little piece of paper I've put together here. Sorry, there's the one I'm looking for. You're going to sign right down here on the bottom line. See that line there?
I certainly do.
It says, give everything to Ken Calvert. Okay.
You're a wonderful man.
I think so. I like to think so.
That you are.
On behalf of Ken Calvert and Bishop Grimaldi, I'm sorry, I'm probably breaking every rule known to the Catholic Church. On behalf of myself, Ken Calvert, and Father Joe Grimaldi, we'd like to thank you for joining us here on the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. We'll see you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
Looking forward to seeing you soon. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.